LSU Baseball has been a battle all season long, with fans comparing this team to last year's team, which obviously there's no comparison, and begging for Jay Johnson's Tigers to win more games. Overall, the Tigers are 29-17 and 7-14 in the SEC. To say that LSU's series this weekend against number 1 Texas A&M is important is an understatement. For today's episode, I'll be bringing on LSU Hall of Famer Todd Walker, who is now an SEC Network analyst on college baseball, to talk all things LSU baseball with the news and sports director of the Louisiana Radio Network, Jeff Palermo, and the editor of Tiger Rag, Todd Horne. After hearing from Todd Walker, the guys will be sitting down with Robert Cessna from MyAggieNation.com, who covers A&M sports, and he'll be dissecting this weekend's LSU versus A&M series.
It's your time to move things forward. U.S. Army Reserve.
Y'all ready? Yeah. Let's go. Come on.
Tiger Rag Radio is on the air.
Let's crank this thing up.
We're statewide, breaking down the latest happenings with LSU athletics.
This is us.
Hear from the coaches.
Put together a defense that puts us in a position to win the SEC.
The players.
Having fun and we working, baby. That's it, baby.
The recruits.
Show some passion and some heart.
And those who cover the Fighting Tigers of LSU and the SEC.
All those things are going to be there, which are important.
It's 2 hours of nonstop LSU talk.
What a privilege. I mean, you get to represent LSU.
Tiger Rag Radio is brought to you by Cummins. Cummins creates power solutions that the world depends on. Helm Paint and Decorating. The paint experts of Louisiana. Louisiana Beef Industry Council. Max Home. And the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Get ready to talk Tigers with producer Jackson Blackman and our hosts, Todd Horne and Jeff Palermo.
3 great players that are better people than they are players.
This is Tiger Rag Radio.
Back here on Tiger Rag Radio, Jeff Palermo along with the editor for Tiger Rag Magazine, Todd Horne, Jackson Blackman, our producer. Let's get right to our next guest joining us on the Max Home hotline. Max Home, over 50,000 Max Happy homeowners and counting. That is the LSU Hall of Famer Todd Walker joining us here on the show now. Does great work as an SEC Network analyst on college baseball. Todd, thanks a lot for spending some time with us tonight. Man, you had a crazy game last Tuesday, right, between Georgia and Clemson? What did it go? Good old-fashioned 12-inning brouhaha?
15.
15? That's
15
what it was.
innings.
Oh, my goodness.
5.5 hours. And, it's funny because we were talking about that because back in 2019, I had the exact same game in the exact same spot, and it went 20, 6.5 hours, 50 strikeouts. So why would you not at least bring it up? And then sure enough, we jinxed it, and here we go to 15. So I don't know if crazy is the word, but it definitely was a lot.
Yeah, that is amazing. LSU, they're trying to climb out of this hole that they put themselves in, and I don't know if they're going to make it, Todd. They're 7-14 in league play. They got a really good Texas A&M team coming to the box this weekend. Then they got to go to Alabama, who's ranked in the top 25, and then you play a rival in Ole Miss. I think they are better than they were a couple of weeks ago, but I still think they are far from what we expected when the season started.
Well, I think you think that because, and then it's rightfully so, the front end of the schedule was top-heavy for LSU. The back end here, it's never easy, but it's a little less difficult. The concerning part is it's not easy to sweep. When they're going to Missouri and everybody says they should sweep them, clearly that's just almost hard to do. But when you're in position to do it, then you probably should. They have their ace, Luke Coleman, on the mound. They lose that game. Then last weekend against Auburn, they're in position to sweep that one, and they lost yet another third game of a series. They've only won one of those all year long, and that was the Missouri series. So in two weeks in a row, there was a possibility to sweep somebody, and they didn't do it. So that's concerning for me. The number 1 team in the land coming in town this weekend. You would hope to get 2 out of 3, but even if they pull one off, that gets them to 8. But you mentioned the 7-14 record. You know who else was in that position a couple of years ago? Ole Miss. They were 6-14 in the league, and then they found Hunter Elliott and Dylan DeLucia and ran it all out. So it's possible, and we saw what LSU did with their pitching staff last year. That didn't look very good last year either. So it's possible, but you got to get there, right? It feels like they're out of the woods in terms of not making the SEC tournament. I think Auburn's done, and then it's going to be a race between Missouri and Ole Miss to get into the SEC tournament. But the ultimate goal is just to get in the field of 64. There's no grand illusions that LSU is going to host unless they go 9-0 these last 3 weekends.
Todd thinks that's a possibility.
I did not. I said if. I kept trying, and you wouldn't even listen to it. You wouldn't even listen to it.
I'm sure there's some people who were saying about Ole Miss too, and then we saw it firsthand. That they were able to get it done.
That's the one thing, Todd, that I think they figured out. The pitching, right? But then you get Ackenhausen, who comes down with this hamstring injury, and Jay Johnson said Monday on his coach's show, it's not that bad. Hey, he only missed 6 days last year when he had a similar injury. Well, if he misses 6 games again or 6 days again, he's not going to be available for Texas A&M. And he was a big part of this kind of the turnaround, getting him to start on Sundays.
Yeah, it's another scenario where you can see it playing out in their favor. Again, Luke Holman pitches better. Again, Luke's pitched 7 weeks in the conference. 4 of them have been non-ace like, right? I mean, he just kind of have struggled. He's pitched well in 3 of them. Ironically enough, the teams he's pitched well against were Florida and Tennessee. Tennessee bashes the ball around, so he's got the ability to beat one of the best offensive teams in the league. Gage jump goes uptick, and then you get Ackenhausen back, and you can see a scenario where they pitch better. And Nate Yeskie was front and center for this thing last year. I don't know if you remember, but Texas A&M went into the tournament 14 wins. Now they were 2 wins ahead of LSU at this point, but they went 5-9 the rest of the way. Got into the tournament with 14 wins, and then Troy Wansing and Justin Lampkin just went berserk. And threw 1-hitters, in first 3 games, they both had 1-hitters for Texas A&M, and A&M makes the final of the SEC tournament. So there is some crazy stuff that happens in this deal. So I've kind of withheld judgment and my emotion by saying just about anything can happen. But you're right, what you originally said. They have put themselves in a bad spot.
Offensively, I don't know what it's going to take to get them. And you look at, okay, they scored 5 runs in one game they scored 5 runs in 2 games against Auburn and 3 in the other, but this is not a great Auburn pitching staff. The wind was blowing out at Alec Box. Offensively, it just has not come along. I can understand you have issues because pitching is almost unpredictable, right? You just don't know certain guys, but it's just been perplexing just to watch this offense just struggle to be consistent. I knew it was going to be a bit of an issue, but I didn't know it was going to be this rough, Todd.
Well, you get guys in the middle of the lineup that strike out a lot.
Right? You're right. You're right.
Travinsky and Jared Jones strike out 25% of the time. To be elite, in college baseball, it's you got to be 10 to 15%. Tommy Tanks is about 15%, just to give you an example. The Ashton Larson kid is up near 25% strikeouts. So they swing and miss a lot. And things that don't show up on paper is the guy on second with nobody out, where you just roll it over to the right side and get him over to third, and then the next guy pops it in the outfield and you get a run. Instead, you got a strikeout and a strikeout, and the guy sits at second and ends the inning. So, there's certain scenarios where, the non-hits don't show up, but moving runners is a big deal. And when you're striking out a lot, you're just not doing that. And those are 1 or 2 runs. Now, clearly Jones and Travinsky can pop you a homer. And every now and then, they're going to have, it's going to be a lightning of a game. But most of the time, and especially if you face a guy like Hagen Smith from Arkansas, you're not going to be popping homers out of the ballpark. You've got to manufacture runs, and I think that's why you see Kentucky doing so well. 1 through 9, they've got the least amount of strikeouts, the best on-base percentage, the most stolen bases, most attempts, and so they just create havoc and they create traffic on the bases, and they'll fight you at the plate, which again goes back to that percentage. They got a lot of guys that only strike out about 10 or 15%, so they're going to fight you.
So Todd, is it just bat discipline? Is it just discipline at the plate?
I would think it's discipline in a certain degree. Like some of those guys are doing well. I mean, Ashton Larson, what's he hitting? 360. I think he's in the lineup every day now for the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Milam has had a nice freshman year. But I think it goes back to two-strike approach. I had to learn. I didn't know it, and I don't know if I knew it in college, but I had to learn that going deeper in counts makes me a better hitter. It makes me, your tempo, your timing, what they're throwing, one at bat to the next. The tempo and the timing get better the more pitches you see. Even if I strike out my first at bat on 7 pitches, I'm set up for the rest of the game, for example. But if I go up there hacking at the first and second pitch and I pop it up in the air, I have a week out, it didn't do anything for me, not only for that at bat, for the at bats to come. And so I think getting deep in counts is a big deal. I think, but in order to do that, you got to have a two-strike approach and not be afraid to hit with 2 strikes, which is easier said than done, but you got to be good at it. Choke up, spread out, expand the zone, be quick, and that doesn't mean pull it, just be quick. And for me, I was always sitting back on off speed and reacting fastball, especially 1-2 counts, defensive counts, and that's what I mean by being quick. I can sit back on your changeup at 75 miles an hour and still put your 95-mile-an-hour fastball in play. But if you don't have a good two-strike approach, you're going to go up early and be hacking around. And I just think you're a better hitter the more patient you are.
Yeah, would you have guessed that out of this lineup, and you had some veteran guys returning, that Ashton Larson would be your top hitter in SEC play at hitting .412? I mean, that's just how that's in a way it's the beauty of baseball, right, Todd? Guys that you just don't expect all of a sudden perform well and come out of nowhere, essentially, because Larson's name was at the beginning of the season. You kind of heard about it, but it wasn't one of the main guys that you were hearing about as far as freshmen that can have an impact. But he really has been fun to watch. He's been one of the when he's at the plate, you're like, okay, something good could possibly happen here.
Well, I'll give you one better. Jay Johnson didn't even know that.
Yeah.
It's one thing for you and I not to know that. We're not at practice every day. But they went 8 weeks of the fall and all the way to this point, and Ashton Larson still hasn't started yet. Now he's going to. And how could he really? I mean, I wasn't there every day, so I don't really know. But clearly, Jay Johnson being an offensive guy, looked at Ashton Larson and said, he cannot be one of my starting 9. And now he is. So, yeah, it is funny the way things work out. How about Gage Jump coming from the same school as Thatcher Hurd? And I would argue that Thatcher Hurd coming in was more highly touted than Gage Jump.
Yeah.
But Gage Jump has done well, and Thatcher Hurd's still trying to find it. So, it's just crazy how some of this stuff works. And I like Nate Yeske. I think he's a great pitching coach. But, I mean, Wes Johnson over at Georgia, that team staff ERA is like almost 6. I mean, and Wes Johnson clearly knows pitching. Mm-hmm. So same, Nate Yeske's in his first year, and it's just difficult. It's just hard to get kids to understand. I don't care, I don't know what Nate's telling them, but the bottom line is I don't care how hard you throw. You got to throw strikes, man. The 2-2 count, you got to throw. For me, if you got issues walking people, you got to throw a fastball right there because the hitter still has a little bit of doubt. You try to get a swing and miss, and you miss, and they spit on it, and now it's 3-2, and you regrip and have to throw a fastball, a little bit of pressure. That's where the walks come from.
Say, Todd, speaking of Thatcher Hurd, going into the year, Jay was talking about how he's probably going to be one of the top draft picks in the country, the type of year he was expected to have. Do you think it's realistic at this point that we see Thatcher Hurd back at LSU next season?
Well, I was, back when I was playing, there were 100 rounds in the draft. So if that were the case, I'd say, no, I mean, they want some arms. And, you can't teach velocity. And Thatcher Hurd certainly can throw it, with some velocity. But with 20 rounds, I think it's very likely and probably better for the kid if he comes back, right? I mean, because he just hasn't put it together yet. I think the talent's there. And we saw some signs last year. He'll pitch tonight, and maybe somewhere along the line he gains some confidence back. But overall, I think, both from a talent standpoint and what he's done so far, and then also for his benefit, I think it would be best if he came back. Because remember, when he first came over, they were talking about him being the ace, right? Mm-hmm. Or at least the number 2 on the weekends, right. And he can't get it done. And that's been 2 years of that. So I don't know the answer, but I just know the facts.
Todd, about a minute left here. Why is Texas A&M so good? What makes them so special? What's going to be a big challenge here for LSU this weekend?
I would say simplifying it, they throw strikes. Ryan Prager's 10-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. Their closer, Ostenbeck, 10-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. Justin Lampkin had a bad outing last week, but he's very good. Tanner Jones a couple weeks ago dealt. So the 3 starters on the weekend potentially have the ability to just shut you down, and not only for a short period of time, they can go 7 or 8. The closer's the best in the country. Evan Ostenbeck, he's not overpowering, but he throws strikes. and he can manipulate the strike zone. They've got about 4 guys in that bullpen that are ridiculous. Chris Cortez throws upwards of 100 miles an hour. Sadeo, and it goes on. And then you start talking about their lineup. Top 4 is probably as good as it gets in the country. Gavin Grahovac, the freshman, has done great, along with Braden Montgomery, one of the best players in the country. Laviolette's got 42, 43 home runs in 2 years. He's really good. Appel in the 4-hole is backing all those guys up, hitting 350. They got an offense. They got a defense. They're number 1 in the conference in defense, and they can pitch it. So, I mean, there's no weakness.
But Todd Horne likes LSU to sweep this weekend.
I didn't say that. Man, I would like for LSU to sweep.
We're all hoping, but I think it's more realistic to
steal
hopefully
one.
get 2.
Steal one at least, and then
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, they need more than one.
Yeah,
time's running out.
You're right. Hey, Todd, good stuff as always. Thanks a lot, man. We appreciate it.
I think that most people that contact the 90-Day Lifeline are looking to be heard and to feel seen.
Anybody that calls here to talk about anything that has them upset, we will talk to them.
Even on our chat and text services, you will be actually chatting and texting with a real person.
We have enough resources to be able to help people in any type of situation.
We have helpline specialists that are trained to handle the variety of calls that we get.
It's a very laid-back thing. We're not judging anybody. We're just a listening ear that some people don't have.
Now more Tiger Rag Radio.
Back here on Tiger Rag Radio, Jeff Palermo along with Tiger Rag editor Todd Horne. Let's talk a little Texas A&M. We bring in Robert Cessna, who is with MyAggieNation.com. He's also the executive sports editor at the Bryan College Station Eagle. He joins us here on Tiger Rag Radio. Robert, how you doing, man? It's been a while. A lot has happened there at Texas A&M. Let's start off with baseball since we've been talking a lot about that. This Aggies team has been really, really good. I mean, anytime you come back from a 9-0 deficit and run rule an opponent, that's pretty darn good. We had Todd Walker on early on in this hour, Robert. He told us there's just not many weaknesses with this Texas A&M baseball team.
Well, no, because once again, as you look at what's happening, the SEC is always strong, but now you throw in the transfer portal, and when you consider how many players A&M has added to their lineup for that, and they're a perfect poster child for, man, you fill in 4 or 5 guys to the transfer portal that are starters, that are studs, and, man, it's incredible. Montgomery, I mean, he's ready for major leagues right now, but you're right. When you look at, particularly, they have great bullpen help. Even if somebody has a bad start, which you're going to in the SEC, they're so deep in the bullpen that they can bring 1 or 2 guys in, whether it's Sadeo or whether it's Ossenbeck, and then suddenly, who cares if they give up 9 runs in the first inning, like you guys said? Whoever thought about that? That happens maybe in Little League where you're down 9-0, and then they give all the kids ice cream, and then before you know it, you lose 19-9. But that just doesn't happen. Not in the SEC.
No, it's been pretty impressive. What do you think? You mentioned the bullpen. Jay Johnson was talking about it, that their strength of that pitching staff actually has switched from their weekend starters to the bullpen. The bullpen has really come on strong here lately.
Yeah, because they have 3 on paper good starters led by Prager, but if they get a problem, like I said, they can even bring in so many guys that they can bring in, starting with Evanchek, I always get his name wrong, Aschenbeck, and need to have an easier name, even though he's from Brenham, whatever. But they got like 3 guys they can bring in if Lampkin has a bad game, or they bring Chris Cortez in, as bullpen. He's halfway, and once again, you're so deep, Los Angeles is going to get 1 guy to come in and throw you 4 shutout innings or allow 1 run while your Bombers get 8 or 9 runs, and then suddenly that deficit is gone because nobody has their kind of depth to me in the bullpen, and from 1 to 9, there is no easy outs, and that's why you're seeing some of these football scores. Because he's not going to play his top pitchers all the time on midweek, and now, but they're even unbeaten in midweek because they got these Bombers.
Did the bullpen materialize through the transfer portal in this offseason, or are these some of the same arms that were in it last year when Nate Yeske was coaching that staff?
Well, obviously Aschenbeck, when he transferred, he's been here forever. He's the number one guy. Sadeo, they got him. He's just a young guy. So once again they started and then they added pieces to it. Man, it's great when you have somebody and you don't lose them like that. And of course, Cortez was here. He started a little bit early in the year. Then they sent him to the bullpen, and he's hitting 98, 99 on the gun all the time. Sadeo, 2 years he started. He's only a sophomore from down the road at Montgomery. So the bullpen is like the one place, how would you say, maybe a little homegrown, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
When you get Aschenbeck's at JC, you forget you still can get guys on JC. It's almost like you forgot about that with all these 3, 4, and 5 year transfers coming in. Texas has always been great in junior college baseball, and now you throw in the transfer portal. It's phenomenal in all sports to me, because A&M softball team's the same way. They bring in like 3 or 4 starters through the transfer portal. They've been really great. You can really hit it big time in the portal, and Schlossnagle already has the recipe to get to the College World Series all these years for TCU, and it gets back to scouting and evaluation. But let's be honest, you can bring a guy like Montgomery in, and you see how bad Stanford is right now. They're probably not even going to go to the tournament when you lose a guy that is one of the top 5 players in the nation. I mean, that says a lot.
Well, what's your take, and what do you think A&M's take is as a team on LSU right now?
Well, when you look at that on the outside looking in, on the away or whatever, it's just phenomenal. But once again, it also shows when you have the talent, what can happen. And then when you don't have the talent or you don't have the experience, I mean, Tommy White, you still got players, but the league is so deep. Like, when A&M plays Georgia last week, you're playing a team that could go to the College World Series. And A&M has beat 7 ranked teams. It's like you're having 7 super regionals. You have them every week in the SEC.
Yeah.
And so SEC, LSU might be maybe the 20, who knows when it all plays out, they could be still the 28th or 29th best team in the country. But you don't know when you're in SEC getting your brains beat out every week. But, I know they got a pitcher, they've made some changes to the pitcher. You catch it lightning at the right time. You get 2 pitchers. We saw Notre Dame go to Tennessee a couple years ago and win a couple games. I mean, it's such a great league to see what you have every game when you go out there. I mean, you're going to face somebody that could get to Omaha.
May is here, and with it comes adventure from your friends at the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Enjoy your summer with the 2024 Summer Reading Program. Besides reading fun, check out free programs for all ages at your library. Go to ebrpl.com/summerreading. That's ebrpl.com/summerreading. Your EBR Parish Library is where summer fun begins.
LSU will be playing ball all weekend long in Alex Box Stadium against Texas A&M starting on Friday at 7 p.m. Central, being broadcast on the SEC Network. Stay tuned to TigerRag.com for all things LSU sports, and we'll be back later.